Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. Who or what are you celebrating today? I'm celebrating 5 incredible artists who have projects coming up that we're going to celebrate today, talk about whatever is on their mind, and see who or what they are celebrating today. We're going to start with a show that's coming up on Monday night. It's going to be at 54 Below. I'm going to bring up the graphic here so you can all see this. Here it is. Backstage Babble celebrates Joe Allen, a restaurant, and that's being hosted by Charles Kirsch. And if you don't know who Charles Kirsch is, you've been sleeping under a rock. Here he is, the busiest man in show business. Hello,
Hi,
Charles.
Richard.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, we do this, we go back and forth with this.
It's
Sometimes you're
true.
on this show, sometimes I'm on your show. But you do phenomenal work, Charles, and everyone knows that.
Thank
And
you.
I don't know how you do it. When I was your age, which was a long time ago, uh, when I was in school, I can't even imagine. I mean, this is not a world that we had. But here you are, and you're creating magic once again at 54 Below. We're going to talk about that in just a moment, but one of the things that I do on our Friday wrap-up show is I've laid out 6 cards, and
Oh,
we're going to ask a mystery question of you. And so pull the number 1 through 6, and we'll see what the question is, and then we're going to talk about the show.
I'm excited. Okay, I'm gonna go with number 4.
Number 4, and your question is, what's the best hotel that you've ever stayed in, and why is it the best hotel? I just got back from California where we did 2
Yeah.
shows. So, I stayed at a great place called the Charlie, in, West Hollywood. It was Charlie Chaplin's bungalow. It was incredible.
Wow.
And then I
Wow.
stayed at a place called, I think, Casa Valente in Palm Springs. So, what is the best hotel that you've stayed in, and why?
Well, first of all, let me just say congratulations on the show you did in California. Having Joanne Morley, that's incredible. I so wish that I'd been there to see it.
It was great. She was
Um,
phenomenal.
Well, this question, I'm glad I got it because it's actually an easy answer for me. There's a hotel that I go to with my whole extended family, my parents, grandparents, and aunt every summer and have been since I was born. And it's one of my favorite places, period, let alone my favorite hotel that I stay at. And it's in the Berkshires, it's in Stockbridge in Massachusetts. And it's called the Red Lion Inn. And it's a really nice place. And it's grown to feel kind of like a second home because of how often I've been there. So that is my answer.
So we'll send this to them so they can get their endorsement. So this is
Yes,
great.
yeah.
This is great. Do you like being on the road?
Not as much as some people do. I especially really don't like flying. It's just sort of a personal thing.
Mhm.
So that's why there are so many great theater places that I want to go that I have never been to. Like London, I would love to see a show on the West End. I go to California sometimes because I have relatives there, but I'm not a big traveling person. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the work that you do here in New York. So, first of all, why a show celebrating Joe Allen's? I can already guess your reasons for that, but talk about a phenomenal cast that you put together.
Thank you so much. This idea was actually suggested to me by Tom Viertel's wife. Tom Viertel is one of the owners of 54 Below,
Mhm.
and I was honored to be asked to take on this particular theme. Of course, I've been going to Joe Allen for many years. I had my own little star run in there when someone was pushing a wheelchair by where I was sitting and asked me to move out of the way, and I looked up and it was Glenda Jackson pushing the
Wow.
wheelchair. So that is my Joe Allen star spotting story, and of course, there are many of those from almost
Well,
everyone
when
in
Glenda
theater.
Jackson says move, you move.
It's true. It's true. And, it has been a really fun thing to explore. I mean, to get to really know some of these shows that I know as posters and now to know what they're about and to know some of the songs. And of course, I've always been a flop fan. I think flops are the next logical step once you get interested in musical theater. You buy Ken Mandelbaum's book, Not Since Carrie, and you start listening to all those rare CDs and everything like that. So I can't wait for the 29th.
Now, there may be 1 or 2 people out there who don't know about the infamous wall of posters at Joe Allen's. So, if you could explain to everyone what these posters mean, and I want to talk about the process of how you went about choosing your cast.
Yeah. Well, the posters on Joe Allen's wall are all of shows that didn't do so well for whatever reason. They're sort of the most, you could say, the most like infamous or most notorious shows that they decided to put up there. Um, and there are so many, it would be impossible to represent all of them in one show. But the way that I picked for this particular concert was honestly a lot to do with simply who that was willing to talk about it and available to talk about those shows from the original production, because with one exception, every cast member in the show is someone who was involved in the original production of one of those shows
Mm,
that
wow.
has a poster on the wall. And something else that was especially fun for me to do and important, I thought, to this show was to find writers who were involved in some of these shows in addition to the performers. So we have Amanda Green, who wrote High Fidelity, who's going to sing and speak about that, and Michael Corey, who wrote Dr. Zhivago, is going to speak about that, and Tam Mutu, who is the star of the show, is going to sing from it. And both of them, of course, have many hits in addition to in addition to those shows. And it's been a fun kind of research thing of almost everyone has said it's a special place in my heart to be on Joe Allen's wall. And
And did each entertainer choose the song that they wanted to do, or did you make suggestions? We'd like you to do this song. And I know you've got the brilliant Michael Levine as the musical director. Did he make suggestions? Did you make suggestions, or did they say this is the song I'd like to perform?
yeah, well, it was pretty much a case by case basis. I mean, sometimes if it was a show where this performer had a specific song that they did in the original show, that would be the choice that made most sense. But as you said, I'm very lucky to be working with Michael Levine, as I have been on a few of my previous shows, and he is great at suggesting songs and matching a performer's two songs. And yeah, and so the only case where I think that it was so prescribed was we have the wonderful Elena Shadow, who I just actually had on my podcast as an interviewee, and she's the only exception to the rule of original cast members. She's singing a song from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue,
Wow.
which was the Leonard Bernstein and Alan J. Lerner musical about the White House. And
And Beth Feller's husband, Jack, was in that production.
yes, yes,
Yes,
Beth and her husband were both in
yes,
that show,
that's right, that's
and
right.
they're coming just to speak about that, and Elena is going to sort of tribute them and tribute the show by singing from it.
Well, I've got a funny Joe Allen story for you. I was at Joe Allen's once. Dodie Goodman was a very dear friend of mine, and
Wow.
we were sitting at the table against the wall, and she was in Miss Moffat, which happens to be on the wall there, and
Yeah.
she was very animated, and she went like this, and she knocked the poster off the wall, and of course, the waiter comes running over. We were dying because it was her show that she was in, and she said, "It shouldn't be up there in the first place." But, do you know anything about Miss Moffat?
I know a little bit. I've read the book that Kevin, I think his name is Kevin Deeringer, who was a
Mhm.
cast member of the show, published last year about his experiences with it, and that's a very fun read for anyone looking for a
Well,
theater
for
book.
those who don't know, Betty Davis was doing it, and Betty Davis disappeared in the middle of the night, and she was replaced by Ginger Rogers. And, but the show was a huge, huge, huge flop.
Yes. Yes.
So what is your hope and goal that audiences will come away with, from seeing this production?
Well, I think one of my main goals is to show that flop is not at all like a pejorative term. Flop doesn't mean that these shows are bad, that they don't have material that's worthwhile inside them. It just means that for whatever reason, in the time that they happened, it wasn't the right moment for them to mesh with audiences and find a big following. But I mean, the most glaring example, which is a show we're representing on the 29th, is Merrily We Roll Along, which of course is now like the biggest hit on Broadway. And who
Mhm.
could have predicted that one of the Joe Allen flops would go on to be such a big hit? And we have Jim Walton, who was the original Franklin Shepherd, singing from that on
Wow,
Monday.
that's
So
great.
that will be a definitive way to prove that. But there's also a lot of beautiful material from these other shows that people might not know as well that is going to be sung. Like Anita Gillette, we just rehearsed with her today, and of course she's fantastic. Oh, she always is. And she's singing a song called I'll Never Go There Anymore from her musical Kelly, which closed in one night on Broadway in 1965, coming up on 60 years of Kelly. And it is a really beautiful song and one that kind of made it out of the show into the Great American Songbook despite the show's fate. So it's a lot of sort of hidden treasures and some more well-known things.
That's great. Well, we're going to bring on our next guest, and you're going to help me bring on the next guest because there are 4 people waiting in the wings. Pull the number 1 through 4, and we'll see who's going to come on.
I'm going to go with number 2.
And this is his first time on the show. Bob, welcome to the show.
All
Now,
right, thank you.
Bob is going to be appearing on Sunday night. And here he is. He's going to be at the Green Room 42. Bob Simonello with the Jeff Harris Quartet. On My Way. Well, Bob, I think you're already there.
Oh, great.
So, Bob, let me ask you, do you like being on the road?
On the road. I like to travel.
Mhm.
That's my favorite thing. My I go to Cabaret every year, and I have friends there, and that's why I can go there. But I love to travel to different countries and sing at different places. Like last year, I sang in London, and it was a whole different experience than singing in New York.
Now, where did you perform in London?
I did what did I do? I did a lot of Marilyn. Um, let's see, on my way to you. I did that
Mhm.
song.
Well,
50%.
where did you perform in London?
There's a lot of different open mics and theater clubs, and I went to one place and I sang 50%, and I got asked to go to other places. So that was my sort of introduction. I was there many years ago, and it's so changed now. But I love traveling to different countries and um, going to different music events there.
And do you have a favorite hotel that you like to stay in?
Actually, yeah, it's in Capri. It's not one of the fancy schmancy expensive ones. It's a place called La Tosca,
Mhm.
and my 2 friends own it, Ray and Michelle. And I went there 30 years ago. It was my first time in it, and it's overlooks the very famous Faraglione Rocks and the Gardens of Augustus, and it's like a 5-minute walk to town. And it has a terrace where you have breakfast in the morning, and it's just amazing. It's
Well, let's pull your mystery card. So
uh,
1 through 5,
3.
and your card is, uh, it's a would you rather question. Would you rather be too hot or too cold?
Oh, neither, but I guess if I had to do it, I really don't like the cold. I'd rather be hot.
So you're looking forward to the summer coming up.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go to Palm Springs. It's hot.
Yeah,
It was so
I've been
hot.
there during the winters, and I really have loved it. It's
That's one
beautiful
of my
weather.
favorite places. Well, let's talk about your upcoming show at Green Room 42. You're there on Sunday night,
Right.
and you're celebrating. On my way. How did you come about that title?
Well, actually, the show started. I started this whole show with a totally different song. I started with another one of their songs, "Something New in My Life." And I like to do different things. I don't like to be stuck in any one thing.
Mhm.
I was a designer. I directed sometimes. I did glass blowing. There's something about when you start something new, you're more seem to be more. For me, I'm more alive when that happens. So that's what I thought the show was going to be. It turned into something else, and it's an organic process. And I kind of like to let things happen and not like say I'm going to write about this and try to fit things into it. Just let it evolve and see what comes up with it. And this show turned out to be about my search for the elusive Mr. Right.
Mm.
And
Well, one of the things that I want to talk about today with all of you, and we're going to talk about this a little later in the show, is collaboration and the collaborative process. And someone just said to me recently about my 2 shows on the West Coast, and they were successful, thank God. You did it. And I said, "No, we did it
right,
because it
right,
takes a village." There were so many people that were involved to get me there and to make sure that everything went well from my band to the venues, everything across the board. What does collaboration mean to you in as far as this particular show is concerned?
well, this show I worked with Christine Zbornak in the beginning before she moved out to Cleveland. And by when the time I went to, I had all the songs and then everything in order and kind of what I was the story. And she's great because she allows you to find the story yourself.
Mhm.
And if she finds something that doesn't fit right, she doesn't say, I think it should be this. She says, this needs to be something else. So she kind of causes you to think more about what fits and what doesn't. But she's one. I love her for this kind of direction because I think it might be rare that you have somebody who allows you to discover the show itself. So that was the beginning, working with Christine, and we edited and we got the story down to what it is now. And then when she moved, she gave me her director, Michael Shirali, who's absolutely terrific. And so we've taken it to where it is now. So I'm excited about the show. I think it's a really interesting show.
I had no idea that she had moved away from New York.
Yeah, she moved to Cleveland. Yeah.
Well, I hope she's happy there, Christine, if you're watching.
Yeah, it's a theater. It's a lot of theater there.
Oh, I know. I saw Hello Dolly there with Betty Buckley.
Mhm.
So, you're going to be at Green Room 42.
Right.
Have you done shows at Green Room 42 before?
No, this is the first time at Greenwood 42. Yeah, yeah. I've done shows at Don't Tell Mama, and then the Magnolia Room in Connecticut. Puerto Vallarta, I did a show with Carly Ozard.
Yes, I love her.
And yeah, so this is exciting. I chose it for a lot of different reasons. I had this show got canceled twice because of COVID. And a lot of older people don't like to go into closed spaces. And the one good thing about the green room is that there are tables and they're kind of separate. So there's separation. That was one reason. And it's a really nice room. Great sound. It's got a great feel and great food. So I decided to do the show there.
Now, what have you learned about yourself from this particular show that you're putting together? I mean, obviously, you've had some bumps and starts to get where you are now,
Yeah.
with directors changing,
Right.
COVID happening, all of those things. What have you learned about yourself as far as this whole process is concerned?
See things as they are, not as you'd like them to be. You just take it one step at a time. When something happens, then you just see that. You have to see it first, and then you can make the changes. But I just sticking with it. I think that's the thing is just sticking with it, and I have faith that the show has a really good story and that it's entertaining. That's the one thing that I think a show has to be entertaining. And I want people to go out of the show with something, with a question either about themselves or about the world or their place in the world, without it being philosophical. It always has to, and it has to have humor. It has to have a lot of humor in it.
Well, I
So
want to let everyone know again that this is happening on Sunday night, April 28th, 7 o'clock, with the Jeff Harris Quartet. So it sounds exciting. And are there other dates coming up? Or
we're gonna see. We'll see how this goes. I'd love to do the show again because I just think it's I think it says something. I hope it says something to people, and it's fun. And working with Jeff Harris and the band, Steve Singer, Scott Thornton, and we brought on a harmonica player this time, Gary Schreiner. And
wow,
it just gives a whole different feel to every song that we had worked on by adding just that one new person. So I'm excited about that.
well, we're going to add one new person to this show right now. So pull the number 1 through 3, and we'll see who we're going to bring up.
Oh, do I do that?
Yeah,
Oh, what numbers are left?
1, 2, 3.
Oh, 2.
Oh, well, this man is one of my favorite people. I can honestly say that. And he was on here just a few months ago with an incredible book, Lessons in Creativity from Musical Theater Characters. And let's face it, we're all musical theater characters. He knows it.
They are.
It's true. That's what his book is about. Dana, welcome to the show.
Hello, Richard. So good to be here. Hello, everybody. Hi, Charles and Bob.
Hi.
So good to meet you all.
Thank you. So,
You
Dana, I mean, you've got so many projects going on right now.
I do.
You're working on a new book, which we will talk about only if you want to.
Sure.
You are also involved in a new production, and of course, you have this book that came out in December.
Right.
So, how is that book going, by the way?
It's going really well. It's primarily a textbook. It's published by Routledge, which also does professional books.
Mhm.
And so it's doing surprisingly well. There are places using it for textbooks and things like that. Plus, it's a great read for anyone who is a theater nerd, a musical theater nerd, you know.
So, Dana, you have been very successful in so many different areas of your life.
Well, thank you for that.
Well, it's true. But with all that going on, have you ever had a poster on the wall at Joe Allen's?
I have in London.
Ah,
I have. I mean, I have. Yes, in London. I was surprised it didn't make it to the wall here. The only it's for the show Zombie Prom,
Mhm.
and it does,
Which is a cult classic.
which is actually, yeah. I mean, there's someone every day. There's somebody producing Zombie Prom somewhere in the world. I'm so grateful for that, and it's just been a great little. Uh, the little surprise. It ran for a month, including previews off Broadway in '96. But since then has become a real favorite among high schools and colleges.
Well, I love what Charles said earlier about how we look through the lens of what a flop really is.
Sure.
And with that experience, does it feel like a flop to you?
Not at all. I have the most wonderful experiences because of that little show. First of all, it's a human rights story. The motor of the show is all about human rights. It's we all belong, and we all feel like zombies at some point in our lives when we don't. We're. I mean, come on. There have been so many times in my life I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere.
Well,
And that's sort of the story, is that we all belong. We all have a place. And so it's kind of caught on as this wonderful little love story and human rights story. So it doesn't feel like at all like a flop to me now. I have people, yeah, this has been around since '96. And so if I'm doing auditions or I'm working on a project anywhere, almost always someone will come up to me and go, I did Zombie Prom when I was in high school, and it meant so much. That's what life is all about, man.
Mhm,
That's it.
mhm.
That's it. I couldn't ask for more. It's exciting.
So I'm going to go back to the previous questions that were asked. Would you rather be hot or cold?
I would rather be Goldilocks. I would like to have it. Could I be her?
Great answer.
I
Great answer.
I would. I mean, do I have to stick to one or the other?
No.
You can have a little of both. Let's just like make it in the middle. How's that?
And do you like being on the road? Or I know you've got a place here in New York. You
Yeah,
also get away every summer. You've got a great place in Provincetown.
right.
But do you like, having the duality of two places? Or
Do love that. Provincetown is pretty magical. It really, you were talking about creativity before. That's a big deal for me. It really is a place where it's like a steroids for creativity, because it's just magical by the water. The light is beautiful every day. And it really is great. I love New York City. I love the energy of New York City. I wouldn't trade it for anything. So I like that. Now, I used to travel a lot when I was a youngin'. I was on the road, with different bands and different groups and different singing kinds of things. So I got to where I really didn't like it so much,
Mhm.
being somewhere new every night.
yes.
Yeah, not a big fan of the traveling for that kind of work. It feels a little mindless, a little. I like to visit places, not
Mhm.
just be in a place for 24 hours.
And do you have a favorite hotel that you like to stay in?
I was listening to you guys talk about that, and I was thinking, I do have one that stands out to me, and it was when we opened The Witches of Eastwick in Japan, Tokyo. I stayed at the Imperial Hotel, and it was really cool. I gotta tell you, it was like a place. There were mirrors everywhere, and it was big. It was very cushy, and I have not since, I don't think, been in a hotel quite like that. So it was neat.
Okay, Dana, pick your mystery question 1 through 4. We'll find out what your question
Let's
is.
go for.
And your question is would you rather question. Would you rather have a rewind or a pause button on your life?
That's really a good question, Richard. I think, can I ask you some qualifications there?
Sure. You're
Kind of
the
like,
expert
I
on
wouldn't
this.
mind a rewind if I could take with me what I know now. Right? That kind of
Absolutely.
makes sense.
Mhm.
Am I able to do that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, then I'll take rewind. Let's do it again. However, if I could only go back, I wouldn't trade anything. I made so many amazingly bad mistakes and choices in my life that all sort of somehow funneled me into my life right now, which I'm very grateful for and loving.
I performed at a memorial on Wednesday night after took the red eye from Palm Springs. I got home at 6 in the morning and I did a memorial that night. And someone came up to me, and because I went through a bad situation with my previous show a few years ago, and she said, "What happened to you was terrible." And I says, "But it got me to where I am today." And
So
that
true, right?
yeah. So and you learn from these things. So
Hopefully.
hopefully. Um, but so let's talk about the work. You've got these great book projects that you're doing, but you've also are working on a production, and let's talk about that before
Well,
we bring on our next guest.
I'm working on, I just started work with some wonderful people who are putting together a not-for-profit organization called AVA. And I just wanted to mention it because it's in early days, but AVA is AVA and it stands for Autistic Voiceover Artists.
Wow.
And it is an area of talent that is not represented, not at all celebrated. And I'm just so thrilled about what they're doing. I'm really proud to be a part of it. So that's something that's in the wings, early days for that. You're going to let us speak to you about our new book.
Yes.
The new book is So You Have a Theater Kid. And I was a theater kid. My collaborator, James Kaufman, was a theater kid. And we've been talking to the most amazing people. I can't tell you everybody right now, but trust me, they're wonderful, including you. You're going to talk
Me, I can't
today,
believe you asked me.
you.
I'm so honored.
It's just been fantastic. We have, I will whisper, we've been talking to some real good, I mean, not good, I mean, they're all good, but I mean, some really solid golden age Broadway performers who are sharing some of their journey as kids who were enamored of theater.
Look at Mr. Charles Kirsch here.
I know, Charles, you're amazing. Can I just let you know that I'm so thrilled that you're here in the world. How excited.
I am too.
Yeah.
Thank
You
you
add
so much.
so much to our
You're so
community.
welcome. You're
Yes.
so welcome.
Well-
It's the thing, isn't it? That's what we need. We need people who are passionate about what they do and that brings more joy into the world.
Well, we'll talk about this, but I mean, get my exposure to the theater as a teenager saved my life. It just got me through so much.
You're finding that a lot.
Yeah.
It's a safe place for people to
It's a safe
be
place, yes.
when they're youngsters a lot of times. So,
Well, let's bring on our next guest.
yay!
One or two.
Oh, me. Two. I'm always for the underdog.
This is his first time with us. Louis, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard, for having me. Hello, everyone.
Louis, were you a theater kid, or I mean, you're in the musical world, but what was your exposure to music as a kid?
Well, my father was the biggest Frank Sinatra fan in Chicago, so I used to listen to his records, and we'd get quizzed at the dinner table. Who wrote it? From what show and what year? So I was indoctrinated at a young age. I wouldn't describe myself as a theater kid, though I did, when I was a teenager, I was a terrific Baby John in a production of West Side Story. But, it's music that has always driven me. Though I composed for the theater for probably the first 25 years of my professional work. And then I just moved toward what I think most naturally love the most, which is just songwriting and performing. So.
Well, we're going to talk about your upcoming show with the amazing Karen Mason, who, by the way, everyone is waiting in the wings. But before we get there, would you rather have a pause button or a rewind button?
A pause button, I would think.
Okay.
But pause meaning let everything keep going, but I won't get any older for a little while.
Oh, that's good.
Good answer. Good
Very
answer.
good. Very good.
And would you rather be hot or cold?
Oh, definitely hot, especially if I can be out on a golf course somewhere.
Well, being on stage with Karen Mason, that's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, yes.
That's
pretty
true.
hot.
That's true. And and what's the best hotel that you've ever stayed in?
I stayed in this terrific hotel, not fancy, but terrific, called the Hotel Wien in Vienna.
Wow.
And Vienna, there are either large streets or small streets that to an American looks like it's an alley. So you arrive and you're going down what looks like an alley. And then you go into this hotel, which is kind of vintage from the 40s. But what made it just unbelievable were the breakfasts. In this grand room, you had everything you could ever possibly imagine, and then a lot that you could never imagine all before you. So I, who am a generally rather late sleeper, never missed a breakfast at the Hotel Wien.
That's great. That's great. And there are 3 cards laid out for mystery questions. So 1,
Okay.
2, or 3.
Let's go with 1.
And your question is, well, let me ask you this. Are you a fan of rap music?
Not particularly. No.
So you don't know what your rap name would be if you were a rapper?
No, I know what my porn name would be, but
okay. So we're going to learn something new today. So what would your porn name be?
Well, if it's based on your first pet in the street you grew up on, it's a pretty good porn name. It would be Shadow Chappelle.
Oh.
Not bad.
I can't wait to see that film, Louis. So, Louis, I want to talk about, I mentioned earlier collaboration, and you've got a show coming up with the amazing Karen Mason. I'm a huge fan. Here's a great photograph of the 2 of you together. According to your press, or the press release that I got from Karen, so I'm not giving away any secrets here, you 2 have known each other for 50 years?
Yeah. Well, 49.
49. Okay.
Who's counting?
Yeah.
Actually, Karen and I met through her first musical director, a fellow named Brian Lasser, who was a dear friend of mine. We grew up together on the south side of Chicago. And at Karen's first gig, which was a New Year's Eve from 76 to 77, she and Brian did 2 of my songs. And that was not only her first professional gig, it was the first time that a vocalist had ever sung any of my songs.
Wow.
And so, and actually one of them is what we titled the show, Ages Since the Last Time.
Wow.
And so, in a sense, the songs we're doing for, there's something from a number of decades that'll be offered in this show, plus a lot of new songs from a couple of albums that I've put out over the last couple of years. But Karen and I have just been friends ever since. And we actually first performed together in 2015. There was a benefit at the 92nd Street Y that was a retrospective of my work.
Oh, wow.
And so I asked her to come, and she performed there with someone who had worked with a lot, Capathia Jenkins and Darius DeHaas. And we had so much fun together because we'd always known each other as someone who sang my songs but I had never played with her. And we had so much fun playing together at that benefit that we, for the first time, put a show together. And then after the pandemic, last summer, we were just saying, that was really fun. Why don't we do it again? And so we're doing another show. And she's just a joy to work with, You don't have to say much to Karen about how to understand and interpret a song,
She has one of the most amazing ranges of anyone I know. And what is that experience like to have her sing one of your songs? We also have Sudi Caritas watching the show, and he's collaborated with Paul on a song that she sang. So, but what is that experience like to have her sing one of your songs and to hear it sung in front of an audience for the first time?
All I can say is that it's easy. She's so good. And that in terms of first just collaborating with her, when I say I don't have to tell her much, that's a great compliment. She brings a great understanding of how to bring that lyric to life through the perspective of whoever the narrator is for that particular song. She makes it her own. And so for me to watch her do a song of mine, if I'm not playing with her, is, like Dana would know, sometimes you're nervous listening to someone do a song about, are they either going to get it, or are they going to screw it up, or are they going to take a completely wrong tack on it? And with Karen, it's just, you sit back and you enjoy the ride, because she's just a pleasure to listen to. And, she's got such a great spirit. I think one of the fun things probably about the shows we've done together, we are genuinely very close friends, and we make each other laugh a lot. And so just on stage, it's not a scripted thing. We know the songs we're going to sing, and we know generally, well, we'll mention this or we'll talk about that. But it's kind of intimate, loose, and fun. And the songs have a real range, I think, of emotional life. So I think people have the opportunity to be moved, to have a few laughs, and occasionally even be challenged. So,
well, the unusual thing about the fact that you've known each other 50 years is that she's only 40.
Well, I was kind of precocious too, so
Hello, Karen.
Well, I have nothing to say to all of you. Thank you all thanks, Louis, for all of that. But I'm so looking forward to this show. I cannot wait. And I love being 40.
Yeah. We all did. Charles, you'll get there.
Yeah, but don't push it. Don't push it.
No,
push it.
Enjoy every moment.
Yeah, seriously.
But whose idea was it to do this show?
I don't know. It might have been Louis.
I think this one was a little more mine, because for the last since the pandemic, I've been writing a lot, recording a lot, but I've only performed a couple of times. And so I remember we were sitting around at a Japanese restaurant last summer, and we were saying, oh, well, we should do a show. I'll say, listen, I'll perform again if you'll do it. And so she said, okay.
Okay, all right, get off my back. Yeah, we giggle a lot. That to me is a really great. Oh, we giggle, we also produce, I mean, I get the glorious honor of singing songs written by someone who is a close friend, who is also wildly talented and tells great stories. And it's easy for me as a singer and an actor to find my way through his songs. It's challenging because his vocabulary, the way he describes things is so personal to him that it's I want to make sure that I honor that. That is, you want to make sure when something is so beautiful and something is so right but different than what it would normally be verbalized as, you want to honor the poetry, you want to honor the magic. And I and I get to do that with a friend.
Thank you.
That's really, we giggle, I mean, the other day we laughed so hard. I mean, we could hardly get through the song because we got to the word prelude. How do you all pronounce that?
Prelude.
Show off. Okay. Anybody else?
Am I right or wrong?
No.
Yeah,
you're
I have
right.
friends. I have friends in the Midwest who say prelude.
See, Louis? Okay. So we
I'm
got
from
to
the
that
Midwest.
word. We got to that word. And I asked my sister, and she said this is exactly how my mom used to pronounce it, who was Southern and Midwestern.
Yeah.
She pronounced it prelude.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, she was kind of fancy. And so we get to that word and both of us just pronounce it totally differently.
And we're singing it in harmony at that moment.
And how will you say it, Louis?
Prelude.
And Karen?
Well, now I have to say prelude because he wrote the song and I can't convince him.
You say her and I say right, and I figured every 8 bars over the course of this show, I'm just going to break into let's call the whole thing off.
Well, I'm sure you've all heard the funny story about that somebody went to an audition and they said, you say tomato, I say tomato, you say potato, I say potato, tomato, potato. Oh, that's great. Well, Karen, let me ask you these questions that I've asked everyone else. First of all, if you were a rapper, what would your rap name be?
Jesus. Okay, well, a few years ago, I was dubbed Easy E because when I auditioned for Rebecca, I had to sing an E, high E, belt an E.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chris Denny and Barry Kleinbort called me Easy E. I think that I don't know if it's still true,
I think you should do an all rap. I think you should do a rap album of songs of Louis and other composers that you've had the good fortune to work with.
Everyone wants to hear a 73-year-old woman doing a rap album.
If Ethel can do a disco album,
that's right. I love that album.
I'm not sure that did Ethel actually do the disco album, or did they just?
Did she know she was doing a disco album?
And she recorded all the songs, and then they put the tracks down around her.
I'll have to talk to Paul about that.
Yeah.
So, would you rather have a pause button or a rewind button?
I think pause, because I honestly, I kind of, with Dana and everybody, I kind of feel like I've made a lot of really big, loud mistakes in my life, and I'm not sure I want to go back to them. But a rewind would, I mean, just a pause so I could kind of think through it maybe, and not go directly to my people-pleasing personality.
only when it comes to the word prelude.
Prelude.
Prelude. I'm
I
gonna
have heard
change the way I
prelude.
say it.
I heard that too. Yeah. But I'm from Ohio. So
And
you hear many things in Ohio.
would you and do you have a favorite hotel that you stayed at?
I have two actually. One is in Oahu. It's called the Halekulani. In fact, we're going there in November. Oh, it's such a glorious hotel. It is so beautiful. It's magnificent. And it's right on the beach. It's just glorious. So to wake up and look out and see the ocean and that, to look at Diamond Head. Oh, it's really glorious. And the other one, actually, I'm going to be at May 26th. Doing the Julie Stein show. It's the Brad Stan Boutique Hotel at the Eldred Reserve.
Oh, I have
Isn't
not
that
been
a
there yet.
great
I have
hotel?
not been there yet, but I used to go. You may remember, I used to go up to the
Right.
Grandstand Inn to see you.
Right. Oh, Richard, you have got to go to this hotel. It is so beautiful. Paul and I walked in to the hotel room, and I mean, we were, the workers, and we walked into this hotel, and we both felt like Ma and Pa Kettle. We were looking around. It's magnificent. It's so beautiful. They've just done such a glorious job within it, and it's in the wooded area. It's magnificent.
So
Yeah.
when
So
will you be there?
May 26th.
Make sure that I get that information, and I will do my
I
very
will.
best to get up there to see it because I missed you. Unfortunately, my mom passed away around the time that you were
Oh.
doing your show at Birdland, and it killed me that I couldn't be there.
Well, it'll be
So,
the same doggone show
well,
up
now
at,
I got a chance to
up
see it.
there. Yeah.
And
Well,
there
I'm
are two
sorry
cards.
about your mom, by the
Thank
way.
you, thank you. So there are two cards here, one or two.
Uh, I'll go with 2. I like the number.
And your question is, well, it's actually a statement. And Dana, this is along the lines of what you do as well. But the statement is, and you just say you agree or you disagree with this.
All right.
My actions are intentional and they bring me closer to my goals.
I would say the first half is true. The second half, not always.
Okay.
Many times I get in my own way, but everything I do is intentional.
Before I go around with the round robin, let me, build upon that question with you. Do you feel that the career that you've had, and you've had an amazing career, has really been a result of the decisions that you've made or circumstance?
That's hard. I would, I, it, okay, I'm going to be really brutally honest here. I think nobody goes into this business thinking, I can't wait to get to the middle. You always think, I'm going to be the biggest star that has ever been in New York. And I would bet that every person in this business feels I haven't achieved that yet. Except for Taylor Swift. She probably feels that she has. And Barbara Streisand and perhaps a few others. But I think the rest of us who are just, we're all journeymen and great things happen. And then great things don't happen. I think there's a lot of circumstance with what happens in your life. The trick is how you respond to it.
That's exactly, absolutely. And have any of you've been in so many successes, but there are a couple of shows that
Oh, yeah.
fall into the other category. But has any of your posters ever ended up on the wall?
No. And I'm quite upset about that.
I was gonna say Karen would be in the show if any of her posters had been on Joe Allen.
Yeah, no, Charles, you need to talk to them and Play Me a Country Song up there. Nobody even knows it in the business. But we closed on opening night. We had one night of our show, 2 weeks of previews, 2 weeks of messy previews, and one night.
Well, Karen, if I remember correctly, that was your first show in New York, wasn't it?
It was my first Broadway show, yeah.
What did that do to you psychologically?
It was hard. I mean, now I laugh about the fact that they took us out on the Circle Line tour so nobody could read the reviews, you know. So there was an entire boat of drunk people because I think we all kind of knew
Oh,
that it was over. But it was hard because I to be in a Broadway show, that was why I moved here, aside from to be the biggest star that New York had ever seen. But I wanted to be in a Broadway show. I was a theater kid, to me, that was home. And to have that happen, it was hard. It was hard. And to be honest, it never gets easier
mhm,
because to be in these shows, you have to fall in love with them.
mhm.
You have to fall in love with the people you're on stage with and what you're doing. And even if it's somewhere deep in your heart, it's a dog and that it's not going to really move or go anywhere. You want to have that faith in it. You want to have that blind faith. And so, yeah, it's hard. It's very hard.
Well, I want to go around and I've got a creative question that I want to ask each of you. And Charles, I'm going to ask you a question that I'm not going to be able to ask anyone else on this panel. How do you balance being in high school and having the career, because it is a career, that you have?
Well, it's a difficult balance. It's a difficult balance. Right now, I will say I'm enjoying my time off from school. I'm currently on my spring break, which is like a week and a half, which is what has allowed me to do this 54 Below show during the school year, as previously I've only been doing them during the summer, and I'm happy to have the chance to do one during the year now. And I think it's a lot about, to me, what I always say is everything that involves the podcast is something that I consider fun rather than work. So it doesn't feel like adding more work on top of work. It sort of feels like that is the break from the work that I have to do at school. So
But Charles, I just want to say, with all due respect, you don't just turn on a microphone and start your podcast. You do a lot of research.
I try to, but even that is something I enjoy
Okay.
a lot.
And Bob, my question for you is, you and I meet on an elevator, and I don't know you. And who, what would you say that your show is about, and who is your audience? Who is the audience that you hope to attract to your show?
Well, the show is about finding Mr. Right, but it could be about, it's really about. Well, don't want to give it away, but it's about that journey that we take when we think what we have to have somebody to love us. And that's what the show starts off with. That's the first song, somebody to love us. And I don't know. Ask the question again.
Who do you think your audience is for?
Well, the audience should be gay people will understand it, because I take them through all the stages that I went from the 60s, to the disco age, coming out in Fire Island, all that, and the difficulties that happened. But I think everybody has those difficulties, no matter who they are. This search for the perfect relationship is really kind of what it's all about. And for me, it wound up in a place that I didn't even know existed. So it was finding something other than Mr. Right. But I say in the end of the show that we have single people. Well, I don't want to give it away. I don't want to give it, but it's really kind of saying to single people that it's okay. It's okay to to not find that the love of your life. You might find it someplace else. And I'm not going to give it away. So,
okay. Dana, my question for you is: do you consider yourself a resilient person? And if so, where do you feel that your resilience comes from?
Well, I feel like I am now. I haven't always been resilient. And I think it's just my resilience now comes from a comfort level of being in my own body and being who I am and embracing myself, warts and all. So that allows me to roll with the punches and know, I love what you said, Karen, about, getting to the middle there. And I think my resilience comes from being at ease with the journey.
Mhm.
That's good. That's good. I think I'm there too. I really do believe
It's
that.
great, isn't it?
It's good to be there. Louis, what have you read this week that really touched you on any level?
Well, I'm reading a book I'm reading two books actually. One is would sound very pretentious. It's a new translation of the prophets of the Old Testament. But the other one is called Sin in the Second City. And it's all about how Chicago, where Karen and I grew up, around the turn of the 20th century, segregated vice, just like New Orleans did. Like New Orleans was Storyville, Chicago was the first ward. And the brothel that was the classiest brothel in Chicago was run by these two sisters named Everleigh. And that's where the term get laid comes from.
Wow.
I'm going to Everleigh's. I'm going to get laid.
Wow. Well, we learned something new today.
Just kind of goes together with Louis' porn name, by the way.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Theme.
So it's hard to believe, but in just a couple of days, it's going to be May 1st.
Mhm.
And
Oh.
so, Karen, what do you feel is the most important goal that you have achieved so far this year?
Interesting. I think it's I've kind of renewed my love of singing. I kind of fell away from it. It became harder. After the pandemic, a lot of things became harder.
Mhm.
And a couple of other issues that made my breathing wonky. And it's been hard to enjoy singing. But lucky, I found a really good person who's kind of shifted me around a little bit. And
You want to mention who that person is?
sure. His name is Andrew Keltz. He's a voice pathologist
Oh, wow.
at Yale. And yeah, and Michael Lerner is the ENT. They're both really great. And it's been, just getting back that ability to relax and enjoy it. That's why I cannot wait to do the show with Louis, because it's, the Julie Stein show was the kind of the beginning of it. And now to get to do this with a, listen, how lucky am I? I get to work with good friends. I get to work with good friends and laugh and be myself and then to sing and to sing comfortably, to sing easily is it's just, I'm very lucky that right now I have that back.
That's great. As we wrap up the show, and it is the Friday wrap-up show, I want to ask each of you the same question, and I'll start with you, Charles. What is something that you've seen in the last week that you touched your soul and you recommend to everyone else?
Well, I've been seeing a lot of theater in the last week. This season, I'm very lucky to be a voter for the Drama Desk Awards.
Wow.
And so I'm able to see as really all the new theater that's coming out on Broadway and Off-Broadway. And this is, of course, a hectic time for that because there's so much coming out. And I feel, especially because it's such a sort of rush of new shows, that makes it that much harder for something to stand out. And something that really did was the play Mary Jane. I don't know if any of you have had the chance to see it yet. It's a new Broadway play. It stars Rachel McAdams, who's a movie star. This is her first time on stage. And it's a really sad story, a very beautiful story about a mother dealing with a sick child. And a lot of it is still sort of staying with me, like just day to day, because it's not just that it was, I mean, it was sad, but it earned it, if that makes sense. It wasn't gratuitously upsetting. It upset me because it felt so true to life.
Great. Bob, same question.
Yeah, I live on Waverly Place, right near Washington Square Park, and it's gotten really bad down here. There's a lot of homeless people, schizophrenics, drug addicts, and there was one person that was lying against the building, and she was asking for money, and a woman walked by, and you just walked by her and looked, got to the corner, and then she turned back, and she went into her pocketbook, and she pulled out some money and came back and gave it to that person.
No.
And that just it made me do the same thing. I got my wallet out, and I thought, you know, if more people did that sort of thing, maybe things would get a little bit better. But that really moved me.
That's going to be a perfect tie into my closing remarks today. Dana, same question.
What have I seen lately that moved me and touched me? This is so selfish. I am just going to let you. We just moved into the new place, and I have to say, seeing the van pull up with all of our belongings, which had been in storage for about a year and a half,
Wow.
meant a lot. So I think that touched me to be home.
That's good. I like that. Louis?
Well, kind of similar to Dana, my wife and I just recently moved up to we sold our Brooklyn apartment and bought a home up the Hudson Valley.
Where?
You know where Fishkill is?
Yes, I do. I do know Fishkill.
Right. And
it's funny that you say that. Again, I'm reading Larry Luckenbill's book, and it opens in Fishkill.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. So
well,
that's very interesting.
We put out food for the birds.
Wow.
And it's truly, you know, after living in Brooklyn for 42 years, you know, it's truly wondrous just watching all of these birds come eat the food. And there's so many types and diverse, and they're beautiful, and they're trying to avoid the squirrels who are trying to honestly, I find myself sometimes just sitting in the window watching this
I do
show.
the same thing. It's one of my favorite pastimes.
And it's just beautiful. Yeah.
And it's meditative also. It's really incredible. Karen, same question.
Mine is not going to be half as interesting as everybody else's. And I want to know, Charles, are you the youngest drama desk voter? Wow. Maybe. I bet you are. I bet you are. You know, it's kind of along the lines, actually, of today I met a friend who I've known since 1978. Another friend who I've known for a long time, Matt Berman, who you know, Richard.
Yes, I love Matt.
Okay, so I met him for breakfast, and we went and sat in the park, and just seeing the trees in the park. You know, every once in a while I get really down on New York, and it scares me, and getting on the subway and all of that. And to see all the trees and all the people out in the park and just be with a friend it was very lovely. So that touched me today.
That's great. And tonight I finally get to see Kimberly Akimbo. So
you're going to love it.
I'm going tonight to see that. So I'm very excited. I want to thank all of you. All of you touch me on so many levels, and it means a lot that you were here today. I'm going to give each of you a chance to have your final word today. And it can be about anything that we spoke about that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish that we had, or just any final message that you want to leave everyone with today. When I finish, I'm going to turn over to you, Charles. And when you finish, you'll pick the next person, and so on, so on. And the last person standing, when you say goodbye, I will end the show, so you don't have to worry about how do I get out of here. I just had the most incredible time out in California. And the message that I'm about to leave with all of you is a message that I give at the end of all my shows. My director is James Beeman, who has done a phenomenal job crafting my show. And he said, the message that you leave at the end of your podcast, I want to work that into the show. And it's a message that I say with every show that I do. And someone in the audience reached out to me and said, I did what you asked me to do, and I have never felt better. And I'm going to tell you what it is in a second. I always say, go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. All of us are on Facebook. Go to your Facebook friends list, and the sixth name that pops up, reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, but a phone call. And let that person know the impact that they've made on your life. Now, a lot of you know that I recently lost my mom. We spoke that morning, and she was not sick. She was not sick.
Wow.
She just had a massive heart attack in her sleep that night.
Oh.
But we spoke that morning, and my last words to her were that I loved her. And just this, just 2 months ago, I sang at Peter Levy's 95th birthday celebration, and now he's passed on. And we see these photographs when we lose our friends and our colleagues, where everyone wants to post, what that person meant to them. And I thought, wouldn't it be better if they experienced that 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we all do that. So I hope that each of you will pick up the phone and call that sixth person that pops up and let me know how that goes, because it will, you're going to make an impact on their lives, and it's going to be a very important thing to do. I have a dear friend, a lot of you know him, and that's Sean Moniger. And Sean Moniger says, we're all in the same storm, but we're in different sized boats. And I always say, I don't care what size boat you're on, as long as you have a skipper by your side. And with that, I'm going to leave the screen. And Charles, I turn it over to you. And when you finish, you'll pick the next person. Everyone, make it a better tomorrow. Thank you. And Charles, it's all yours.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you so much, Richard. That was such a beautiful message to end with, and I will definitely follow that advice. And I just want to say thank you for including me in this very distinguished panel today, distinguished lineup, and just to encourage everyone one more time that if you do happen to find yourselves free on Monday night at 7 p.m., it would be great to see you at Backstage Babble Celebrates Joe Allen Restaurant at 54 Below. And for those of you who aren't in New York, you can also live stream. And I also just want to say, in order to turn it over to Karen, I was lucky enough to do a show with her back in July, and it was very special to hear her recreate her song from Sunset Boulevard. And I think this evening will be full of equally special moments. So thank you, Richard, and turning it over to you, Karen.
With you, I disappeared. My words are just life is short. If don't let your ego, your anger, your disappointments get in the way of letting this day be special with people in your life. Life is too frickin' short. Enjoy it. And I'd like to turn it over to Bob.
Okay. I think some of the worst things that happen in our life, at the time they seem really terrible. But those are the things in my life, and I think in many people's life, that turn out to be, in a way, the best things that happen. I had a terrible thing happen to me, and it changed my life. My whole life would not be different if I didn't have that one thing. So, and there's a line in that one of the songs that I sang at the show. I can't remember it now, but anyway, that's we shouldn't forget that sometimes the worst things are actually things that can foster change. Oh, and I'm turning it over to Louis.
I think what I would say, maybe perhaps two thoughts. One is that it's important to strive, plan, work hard. But a lot of the most wonderful things that happen in life happen by accident. It's happenstance. It's a moment's turn. And I think we just have to be open to that, and that what we think or hope might happen and what actually will make us thrive or happiest are not always the same thing. There's a song in the show Karen and I are doing together. It's called Love and Ashes. And that song, I think, sums up a lot of the essence of what a lot of the songs are about. And there's a line in it, which is the beauty of life and the heartbreak of living are one. And they are. And I think we embrace both. So with that, I turn it over to Dana.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Wow, what a wonderful show. Thank you, Richard. You know I love you. Thank you for asking me to be part of this. It was so great to see everybody today. I'm going to end with one of my favorite quotes. I don't know where it came from, but it's this: it all works out in the end. And if it hasn't worked out yet, it's not the end. Thank you. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.